All right. Probably not going to go a long time, but there's some points about motivation I really wanted to hit on. I happen to think that this topic is one of the more important ones, and uh, important to understand. You know, a lot of motivation is internal, lots associated with personality. But I do believe as leaders, you can set the environment and the tone that really enhances motivation. Uh, and what I want to cover tonight, I mean, the book presents a nice model for looking at motivation. I wanted to present what I think are like four main underlying theories that are talking about what's in the book. And I really think if you understand this, it can really help you understand people and in the work setting. And a lot of it, I asked you to think about yourself and your motivation, because a lot of what motivates you is the same type of thing that's motivating people to work above you and below you and beside you. Uh, I really believe this, that what organizations really want from us are two basic things. And they want from us performance and commitment. And what I mean by performance is they want people to be productive in terms of doing their work. And they want commitment. And you notice I use the word commitment, not loyalty. What commitment means is, as long as I'm with this company, I'm going to do my utmost to advance what they stand for. I'm committed to the job that you hired me to do. And you think about it, I really believe that's what most organizations want. And I really believe that understanding the topics that we're talking about in this course are what leads to these two things. And while most organizations would believe this, only about 1/8 of all the corporations actually behave in a manner that helps people to their optimal performance and their optimal commitment. Um, you know, motivation is related to performance. That's why we talk about it sometimes when you see models. Your motivation really leads to your performance, and it has to do with your ability as one part of the equation. And then the situation you're in, the environment, has everything to do with performance. So I'm going to kind of ferret out this model. Um, if you see poor performance in your organization, one of the issues you have to ask is, how difficult is the work we're asking people to do, and how capable is the individual? And then the second part is, how hard is the individual trying to do the work, and how much improvement is the individual making? So I sometimes tell people, if you're having a problem with a person who's a poor performer, the two questions to ask you, the question to ask yourself really, am I dealing with an attitude problem or an ability problem? And too often, if a person has an ability problem and you treat it like an attitude problem, you're not going to get the optimal. And likewise, if a person has an attitude problem and you treat it like an ability problem, you're not going to get the right kind of results. I think that's a very important question to ask yourself when you're dealing with a person. I think a lot of organizations put people get caught up in situations where they might not have the ability or support to do everything. The word motivation comes from the Latin word to move in a certain direction. And, if you're moving in a certain direction, how much intensity, in other words, how much effort are you going to put in, and how much persistence, how long you're going to work at it. So if you're performing, how intently are you performing, and how long is the level of your performance? So motivation leads to performance, which leads to certain outcomes that you get, which leads to satisfaction. And some would say that our performance is the product of ability multiplied by motivation, and your ability is your aptitude, your training, your resources, and motivation is your desire or your commitment. And a little bit, that's what we're talking about. So in a theoretical framework, that's how I like to think about motivation, as linked to performance and productivity. I'm going to talk about 4 basic models that we think about when we talk about motivation. And this whole chapter kind of centers around these four underlying theories or models. And the first one has to do with that little equation I put up. It says that effort is my motivation. How much intensity, how much persistence will I put out to perform? And if I perform, will I get certain outcomes? So what this model says, I'm going to put out effort if I believe in myself, if I have the confidence. If you ask me to write haiku poetry, I'm not going to be very motivated because I'm not real good at it. And I don't believe I'm good at it. So my motivation is going to be pretty low. So a lot of our motivation is related to our self-efficacy, our belief in ourselves, or our self-esteem, or our confidence. So I say to myself, if I exert effort, will I be able to perform? In other words, do I have the ability to perform? And if I perform, will I receive certain outcomes? And will the outcomes be satisfying to me? And then the model said you could put a value on the outcomes. And the outcomes you might get from performing are pay and maybe recognition, perks, whatever it is. It's kind of this is almost like a transactional model for looking at things. So if I put the effort out, I'm going to put the effort out if I know I can do the job. And if I perceive I'm going to get something of value. That's why it's called expectancy theory. And I think this explains, personally, I think it explains a lot of behavior. So, a big part of this is self-efficacy. How much do I believe in myself? And if I look at my past accomplishments and, or I see someone else doing it and I say, hey, I can do that just as well as they can, or maybe people give me a lot of verbal persuasion or encouragement. You see coaches doing locker room talks at football games. That's all building up that sense of self-efficacy that will enable them, all the athletes, to perform. And so if I believe in myself and I look at the job that has to be done and I look at the resources I have, then I feel pretty confident that I could get something done. And then if I look at the outcomes, these are some of the needs that might be that I might get. This is all Maslow. Remember Maslow's motivation? This is where, when you were in college studying about motivation, you probably started with Maslow in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Well, what that is that's the outcome of your performance. So that's the outcome of your motivation. Am I going to have safety, autonomy? Am I going to get growth? And am I going to get money? Oh, and sometimes you can look at these as internal and extrinsic outcomes that you get. pay, bonuses, promotions, praise, job security. And sometimes your outcomes might be intrinsic. I have a sense of accomplishment or knowledge gain or whatever, but they all kind of go back to that notion of effort, performance, and will I get it? So let me ask you a question. I mean, do you sense that this might explain behavior, that little theoretical model? Let me ask you a question. You can put in chat. If I offered you, let's say, what if I this Saturday offered each of you $1,500 to come over here and help me with a project for 3 hours? Do you think you would be motivated to help me out? Assuming you're free, assuming you can do it. I'm going to pay you $500 an hour to do it. And what I want you to do is put in chat, would you be motivated? Yes or no? And on a scale of 0 to 10, how hard do you think you would work for that money? So just type it in chat for me. We can look at all your answers.
Would you pay us up front or after?
However you want. So Caleb says yes, and you would do 10. Alessandro, yes, 10. Kelly, yes, 8. All right. Justin, 10. Gabrielle, 9. So you're all pretty good. Okay, so I like your motivation and your intensity. The numbers 8 to 10 are telling me that you're going to be pretty intense. All right. But you find out I have another class just like yours, and you just discovered that I offered $2,000 to other members of another class to do the exact same thing. Exact same thing. And they're coming over Saturday morning. So I offered you 15, I offered them $2,000. Do the same thing. Do you think you would still be motivated? But what would your number be of intensity? Kind of put yourself in that situation. Okay, so your numbers are you're going to do it. 1,500 sounds good, but maybe your intensity goes down a little bit. Well, part of the reason I did this was that model that I showed you doesn't explain everything about motivation. What it doesn't explain is a sense of fairness that we have. So there's another theory called equity theory, and it brings fairness into the equation when it comes to motivation. So you have certain inputs that you put in. So you see yourself, there's certain things that go into your makeup, your education, your effort, your background, how many years you've been at the job, and you get certain outcomes. What you naturally do is you compare yourselves with others and their inputs and their outcomes. And if you think there's basic fair, now a lot of this is based on perception, but in all my working years, I have seen this, and I've seen it at play in all walks of life. If you believe there's a basic fairness, there's a state of equilibrium. But what happens if you believe that your outcomes and your inputs, you're getting less than another person who you perceive as the same as you, what happens to your equilibrium? Anyone could answer that. How do you feel? Or what do you feel you have to do? Or how would you react to that? Let's say you're putting in the same as somebody else and you're not getting out what you think you should. Alessandro, how do you think you would react to that?
I mean, frankly, I'd be a little ticked off, honestly.
And what would you do to bring yourself back to equilibrium?
I mean, I'm not a very confrontational person, so I wouldn't outright confront the person about it. I think I'd just be like, I'd be asking myself, like, why does that other person bring value? Like, what makes them more valuable than me? It'd be a real, like, what's the word? Like, introspective kind of thing for me.
Would you start looking for another job? Maybe?
Most likely, yeah.
Or you wouldn't go to your boss though? You don't like to confront. You would think the boss should know that.
Honestly, probably not. Like I said, I'm not very confrontational
Okay.
or assertive.
How about others? Any other ways you might bring yourself into equilibrium? Maybe from experience, have you done this on jobs? Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I might not put in as much effort, right? If I'm not getting recognized like I should.
Okay, so your effort might go down. That brings you into a state of equilibrium then. I'm not going to work that Saturday that you want me to work.
Yeah.
What about the other situation? What if you found out that you're actually getting paid more than other people? It's unfair in the other direction. You're the one benefiting. What would you do to bring yourself into equilibrium there? Probably rationalize it. I deserve more. Or it might bother some people if your peers are not fairly treated. So I guess what I'm saying in motivation, the issue of equity and fairness is a big issue, and it happens an awful lot, and it's something that we naturally do. The third area is whoops. Here's just like the other theory, here's some outcomes and inputs that we compare. Some of the inputs: effort, performance, education, experience, seniority. These are all typical inputs. And then outcomes may be a lot of different things: pay, benefits, fringe benefits, status symbols, your office size, you name it. Another one is, any athletes here? Any of you runners or athletes? Typically, this is a biggie: goal setting. The ability to set goals is a big motivator for people. And probably most of you are dealing with goal setting in your organizations. Do your bosses meet with you and go over certain objectives that you're trying to accomplish, performance objectives? These are all, the act of setting goals is a very big motivator for people. You look at athletes, they're constantly setting goals, for performance goals for themselves, and it's self-motivating. And just the act of setting goals. When I was getting my MBA back in the old ages, there was a fad that went around called MBO. Anyone ever hear of MBO? It's management by objectives. Bestsellers on the New York Times bestseller list on management by objectives. And basically the whole theory was, you start at the top and you set strategic objectives, and these objectives work their way down the line. And if everyone's in alignment, then you achieve performance. We don't hear about management by objectives, but every organization does it now. Goal setting, organizational setting is a way of life. Goal setting, goals that are self-set are the highest motivating type goals. So if you do goal setting with people, having people participate in the goal setting really adds to the motivation. It adds to the intensity and the persistence of the effort. And then if you let people come up with their own ways of getting the job done, that even adds to the motivation. So in goal setting, the sharing of the setting of goals is very important motivator. And so goal setting can be a very important aspect when you think of setting goals. You tie goals to rewards. Maybe you publicize people satisfying goals. You provide support for achieving them. You collaborate. You provide resources. And goals that it's been shown that difficult goals are those that are the most motivating. Impossible goals tend to demotivate people. Easy, moderate goals aren't as motivating as difficult. What they call them, stretch goals. And more difficult goals lead to higher performance. More specific goals lead to higher effort than vague goals. And if people participate, they have a positive effect on effort. And I love this. The book really goes through this. It's called SMART goal setting. The best kind of goals to set are what means by SMART. They're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're relevant, and there's a time frame. So if you're working on goal setting and take a look at your goals, are they SMART goals? Look at these two goal statements: to be the highest quality space exploration industry in the world. Well, that's kind of vague. But if you look at President Kennedy said this, that we will put a man on the moon within this decade and return him safely to Earth. He said that in 1962, and it happened in 1969. So that goal, we will put a man on the moon within this decade and return him safely to Earth. It was specific. You could measure it. He believed it was attainable. It was very relevant to what was happening. And there was a time frame there, this decade. So that's a really good example of what's called a SMART goal. And kind of related to all of this, I want to, this motivation, I want you to think about job satisfaction, because I think it's related to motivation a little bit. And I want you to write in the chat box 1 or 2 things that give you job satisfaction. Maybe just pick 1 or 2 things, or 3, and just chat it for me, and we'll put it up. Think about what gives you job satisfaction. Just 1-word answers. Is it pay? Is it your work environment? Well, whatever. So just one or two words. What gives you job satisfaction? Alessandra, job security, pay. Caleb's pay and solving meaningful problems. Environment and pay. Recognition, culture, Kelly. And Justin, being appreciated in pay. You've identified a lot of them. There's research on these. In fact, a lot of the research done comes up to these 5 things were recognized as kind of the top 5 out of a list of about 15 different attributes: pay, promotion, your boss, your coworkers, and the work itself that you do. And I saw you picked a couple of those out already. On your list, what would you pick? What do you think is going to turn out as 1 or 2 in the research? I'll go through the chart. All of these have a high correlation with job satisfaction. Which do you think has the highest? You could just put in there A, B, C, D, or E. So we have an A, a C, 2 A's and a C, 2 C's, 2 A's, 2 C's, and an A. All right. Remember what I said, all of these are important. All of these are important. All of them have a high correlation. What this says, a correlation, a strong correlation is anything in the green, and a moderate correlation is 0.3 and above. The highest, though, is the work itself that you do. Now, all 5 of these have a high correlation. If you were doing real satisfying work, but you weren't getting paid very well, you probably wouldn't have the level of satisfaction. But what shows up here, what I think is important on this list is the work itself that you do, the meaningful work you do. What I gave for you a job satisfaction survey that you can take as part of the assignment, and I think this is a real interesting survey. I found that with most of the people taking it, find it's pretty much on target. But what this is saying is that the work and this kind of information has led to some further studies about what is it about the work itself that is so motivating. And that's when we come up with the notion of psychological empowerment as the fourth motivation theory I wanted to talk about. On this one, the coworker and the boss, I can't tell you how many dissatisfied people I talk to in the work situation, and how much of it's related to the boss, and how that just is a real killer for a lot of people. Basically, what we want from a boss is someone who's going to support us to get the job done, and someone we like. Those are the 2 main characteristics. And in coworkers, the 2 main characteristics we like are someone who's going to have our back on the job and someone we like. And then in there is a chance for advancement, and then the pay. So I'm not, all of these are real important, But the one that seems to be the most significant for people is the work itself. And then that all leads to, we've talked about expectancy theory, the equity theory, the goal setting, and this is psychological empowerment. And that means we feel empowered at work if we believe we're doing meaningful stuff, if we believe there's some kind of self-determination, that we have some kind of autonomy, that we believe we're competent, and we have a sense of competency, and we believe that the work we do has an impact. And basically, that job satisfaction survey I gave you measures those characteristics there in blue. And what we want in a job is variety, a sense of identity with what we do, and the significance of it. That all ties into the meaningfulness of the work. The autonomy ties into responsibility for outcomes of the work we're doing. And if we get feedback, knowledge of results, all that leads to satisfaction with work. That's assuming you have knowledge and skills, and assuming you want to grow on the job. Now, if you're the type of person that wants to sit and put in your 8 hours and collect your paycheck, this model doesn't quite work. This model only works for people who have a need or want to grow and advance. So that job satisfaction survey, what this leads to is, if you're doing satisfying work, which is one of those characteristics, if you have satisfaction with work, that would tend to lead you to have job satisfaction, basically. And it's going to be very motivating for you. So this all leads into that notion of psychological empowerment. So if we kind of put all this together, what I'm talking about, these 4 theories, and I believe this model's in the book. If you have effort that leads to performance, if you have the ability, that self-efficacy, and you have goals that you accept and are challenging, and they lead to outcomes, and those outcomes satisfy things you want, and you believe they're fair, then that's going to lead to satisfaction. And that'll all lead back to commitment and feedback into your effort. And so this whole model kind of incorporates those 4 theories I'm talking about, and they're all incorporated. There's a handout, I think there's a chart in the book that talks about a 6-part motivation theory. That's what the book centers on, that 6 things to concentrate on. If you establish moderately difficult goals that are understood and accepted, that's goal setting theory. If I apply this to the classroom, do students understand and accept my performance, or do workers or employees understand and accept performance? Remove obstacles to performance, empowerment theory and goal setting theory. Do workers feel it is possible to achieve the goal? Or do students feel? And then number 3, you use rewards and discipline as appropriate. That's all the expectancy theory, goal theory. Do you feel that being a high performer is rewarding or not? Then the 4th thing.
Welcome to your NFL headlines of the day.
Alexa, stop. Sorry about Provide incentives. Do you feel the rewards? Distribute rewards equitably, and then give timely and honest feedback. Are we getting the most out of our rewards? Do students or workers know where they stand? And I would have to believe that if you're finding motivational problems in your workplace, you can find it somewhere on this diagram. That where your organization is, it could be in the supervision, it could be in policies around rewards and punishments, all those kind of things. So that's my quick take on motivation. I think I really think that I think spend some time with those 6 statements. I put a handout in there. That's what's in the text. Any problem, I believe, in motivation in a company is going to be, you're going to find it somewhere within those 6 statements in an organization. And motivation, you know, I think the other thing, one size doesn't fit all. As you see that those 4 basic theories that are there, they help explain, you know, most of us are complicated. You know, motivation isn't necessarily any one of those. Each of us has a preference, maybe. Some of us maybe want to do more meaningful work, others goal setting. But one of those motivational models, I think, captures where a lot of people are. And I think it's worth your attention to all of that, because I think if you're in leadership positions, you're tasked with creating an environment that is motivational. And I think that's the best you can do. So, any thoughts anyone has? Any comments? Any questions? All right. The assignment's not too bad. I know you know it's due the following week. Next week, the class is going to be on managing conflict and negotiation. And that's in person. And we'll figure out then. There's no assignment associated with the next week. So we'll see you in class and have a good week. And before you know it, it'll be Thanksgiving. All right. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.